The great council hall was built to impress. Its walls shimmered with soft blue lights, and the air smelled faintly of some alien flower. Every species in the Galactic Concord had a seat here. The room was shaped like a wide circle, and the counselors sat on high platforms that overlooked the center floor. This day, the seats were full. There was tension in the air, a heavy kind of silence that pressed down on everyone's shoulders. Holoscreens floated above the table, showing reports of burning cities, broken ships, and dark clouds in space. The Phyrexian horde was coming. Most counselors spoke in careful, worried voices. Tall creatures with feathers, four-armed beings with cold blue eyes, and fish-like diplomats from water worlds all argued about what to do next. Some wanted to beg for peace. Others wanted to hide. A few were ready to run. And then the humans arrived. Two of them walked into the chamber. The first was Captain Rena Calder, a soldier from Earth's Defense Force. She wore dark armor with old scratches across the plates, and a small grin played on her face as she looked around the room. Beside her walked Elias Voss, a quiet man with sharp eyes and a data tablet in his hand. His clothes were plain, but there was something about him that made others uneasy. Humans did that to people. The council had voted to give Earth a seat only a few years ago. Many still believed it was a mistake. Deathworlders, one counselor whispered to another. Monsters. Rena heard them. She nudged Elias with her elbow. Bet you 5 credits someone insults us before the meeting starts, she muttered. Too late, he replied without looking up. The council leader, a tall, silver-skinned being named Seratan, called the room to order. We face a crisis. The Phyrexian horde moves closer to our core worlds. Already 3 colonies have fallen. Millions are gone. A murmur rippled through the room. Holoscreens showed dark images of the destroyed colonies. We have gathered to discuss our options, Seratan continued. We must decide how to respond. The humans were told to wait and listen. Their opinions were not wanted yet. Other counselors argued over treaties and pleas for peace. Some suggested sending envoys. Others spoke of hiding their people. Rena leaned back in her seat, watching them with a calm face. Inside, she felt disgust. She had seen what the Phyrexian did. There was no peace coming. Elias quietly took notes. He marked which species showed fear, who stayed silent, and who looked to the exits. It was a habit of his, reading people. It kept him alive back home. As the arguments dragged on, a new message came through the holoscreens. A Phyrexian warlord's face filled the air, sharp, cruel, and filled with hate. His voice was a growl. Surrender your worlds, he ordered, or burn. The room fell silent. Rena smiled. Here we go, she whispered. The council hall stayed silent after the Phyrexian message. Some counselors looked down at their hands. Others stared at the floating holoscreen, where the warlord's face had vanished, leaving only a black screen and a line of cold words. Surrender or be destroyed. Captain Rena Calder crossed her arms and leaned back in her seat. Her sharp eyes scanned the room. She wasn't surprised by the fear. Most of these species had never faced anything like the Phyrexian. They didn't know what real danger felt like. But Rena did. On Earth, danger was part of life. Elias Voss sat beside her, his eyes half closed as he tapped his data tablet. He wasn't looking at the battle reports or the messages from the Phyrexian. He was watching the counselors. Their movements, their faces, the way their hands shook or their voices cracked. He took mental notes, marking which ones would run first and which might fight if it came to it. A thin, bird-like counselor from a planet called Threltan cleared her throat. Perhaps we should offer a message of peace, she said, her voice trembling. Show them we mean no harm. A large-scaled being beside her hissed. They already mean harm. You saw what they did to our colonies. More voices joined in. Fear, anger, panic. None of them noticed the humans sitting quietly in their seats. Rena sighed. She leaned over to Elias. They're not going to last long like this, she muttered. I give them 2 days before someone tries to surrender, Elias replied, his voice calm. One counselor, a thin creature with long antennae, turned toward them. Deathworlders, he said, the word sharp and bitter. Why are you even here? This is a matter for the civilized council. Rena smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. We were invited, same as you. The counselor snorted. Your kind knows nothing of peace. You're right, Rena said softly. Because where we come from, peace has to be fought for. The room grew quiet again. Elias looked up from his tablet. Do you know what a death world is? He asked the council, his voice steady and clear. It's a planet where everything tries to kill you. The weather, the land, the creatures. It doesn't care how smart you are or how many weapons you carry. It hunts you. It waits for you to make a mistake. And if you do, you don't get a second chance. He let those words settle in the room. That's where we come from, Elias continued. A world that has tried to wipe us out again and again. Storms, predators, plagues, wars. We survived every time. Not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to give up. One of the counselors shifted uncomfortably. Rena grinned. So if you think we're scared of the Vrixen, she said, her voice quiet but sharp, you're wrong. Outside, the war fleets were moving closer. Time was running out. The council meeting dragged on. Voices rose and fell, but no one offered a real plan. Some spoke of surrender, others of hiding, and a few hoped the Vrixen might spare them if they sent gifts. Fear hung in the air like a thick fog. Captain Rena Calder tapped her fingers against the table. Her sharp eyes never stopped moving, watching every counselor, every flicker of fear, every nervous glance. She had seen this before, in war rooms back on Earth, when leaders froze and waited for a miracle that never came. Elias Voss kept working on his data tablet. He was mapping council behavior, marking which species were likely to betray, which might stay loyal, and which were too afraid to act at all. It was a cold, careful process, but it had to be done. Finally, the council leader, Saratan, raised a hand. Her voice was heavy. We must consider sending a peace envoy. Several counselors nodded quickly, eager to agree. Rena spoke before anyone else could. You'll die. Every head turned toward her. Some stared in shock, others in anger. Deathworlder, hissed the same counselor with the long antennae. You have no right to speak. Rena stood, her voice calm and steady. I have every right. Because while you sit here, the Vrixen are moving closer. You think sending a message will save you. It won't. They won't stop until everything you built is gone. And what would you suggest? Another counselor demanded. War? You think brute force can win this? Elias looked up from his tablet. Yes. The room went silent again. Rena took a slow step forward. On Earth, we learned early that survival doesn't come from wishing. It comes from fighting, from knowing when to stand your ground. The Vrixen don't respect weakness. They won't stop for words. But if you hit them hard enough, show them you aren't afraid, they'll think twice. One of the counselors, a thin, pale creature, spoke up. Even if what you say is true, we don't have the strength. Rena's grin was sharp. Then you let us handle it. She turned toward the council leader. Give us permission to act. A strike team. Small, fast, quiet. Let us show them what Deathworlders can do. Saratan hesitated. Centuries of peace made her doubt, made her afraid. But the message from the Vrixen warlord still hung in her mind. Finally, she spoke. Very well. You may act, but only a small force. No council fleet support. We don't need it, Rena said. Elias closed his tablet and stood. We'll need access to your ship records, supply stations, and a few of your braver soldiers. Some counselors looked uneasy. Others looked curious. None of them truly understood what was about to happen. Rena and Elias did. The humans had been waiting for this. The meeting room cleared out slowly after the council gave its answer. Most counselors hurried away, not wanting to be near the humans any longer than necessary. Some whispered to each other, afraid of what might come next. A few stayed, watching Rena Calder and Elias Foss with nervous eyes. Rena leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She watched them leave one by one. "They'll be the first to run," she said quietly. "I already marked them," Elias replied, tapping on his data tablet. His calm voice didn't match the tension in the room. Sarah Tan, the council leader, stayed behind. Her silver skin looked dull, and her face showed deep worry. She spoke in a low voice. "If you plan to fight them, you'll need more than weapons. You'll need a way to frighten them." Rena gave a short laugh. "That's what we're good at." Elias stepped forward. "We have something in mind. A doctrine made for creatures like the Vrixen." Sarah Tan raised a brow. "Explain." Elias opened a holoscreen and displayed a map of enemy territory. "Operation Ashwinter," he said. "We strike their weak points, hit their supply lines, destroy their fuel depots, and scatter their smaller fleets." Rena pointed at several marked spots on the map. "And while we do that, we release Deathworld bioweapons." Sarah Tan's eyes narrowed. "What kind?" Rena listed them calmly. "Venomous insects, fast-growing vine traps, aggressive water predators, and airborne spore clouds that confuse and blind." A nearby counselor gasped. "That's cruel." "It's survival," Rena said, her voice like steel. "They came for our homes. Now they'll learn what a Deathworld can do." Sarah Tan hesitated, then gave a slow nod. "You have permission." Rena's grin was cold. "Good choice." Elias moved the map again, showing routes for small strike teams. "We'll need volunteers." "Not many, just those who aren't afraid to bleed." "And if they won't volunteer?" asked the pale counselor still in the room. Rena shrugged. "Then we'll go without them." Sarah Tan spoke again. "If this fails, we lose everything." "If we do nothing," Elias replied, "you lose it anyway." The room fell silent. Outside, the council guards waited nervously, unsure what to make of the Deathworlders. They'd heard the stories, the endless wars on Earth, the storms that tore through cities, the creatures that hunted people in the night. Humans were survivors, and survival changed people. Rena and Elias didn't look like monsters, but everyone could feel it in the way they moved, the way they spoke. There was a weight to them, a quiet promise of violence if pushed too far. "Let's get started," Rena said. Elias nodded. "We have a war to win." And with that, the two Deathworlders left the council chamber, ready to show the galaxy what their kind could do. The small ship named Grey Widow drifted through the dark space between stars. It wasn't large or pretty. It didn't shine like the council's ships or carry bright banners. It was built for speed, silence, and surviving the worst corners of the galaxy. Captain Rena Calder stood on the bridge, staring out through the thick glass. Ahead, a faint red light marked the edge of Vrixen-controlled space. Behind them, the council's fleets stayed far away, too afraid to follow. "Any movement?" Rena asked. Elias Foss, sitting at the control panel, shook his head. "Nothing yet. Patrol routes look the same. No new ships." "Good. Means they don't know we're here." The rest of the strike team moved quietly around the ship. There were only 10 of them, a mix of humans and a few brave volunteers from other worlds. None of them spoke much. Everyone knew what was at stake. Rena walked through the lower deck, checking weapons and gear. Crates lined the walls, filled with Deathworld weapons, living traps, spore bombs, heat-seeking darts, and other terrible things made for survival on Earth. Tools made for creatures that didn't fear the dark. One of the volunteers, a tall insectoid named Murrin, watched Rena with wide eyes. "Are these safe to use?" Rena grinned without humor. "Safe for us, not for them." The plan was simple. Slip past enemy patrols, strike at a fuel depot deep inside Vrixen territory, leave chaos behind, and vanish before anyone could react. Elias's voice crackled over the comm. "We're 5 minutes out." Rena moved back to the bridge, locked targeting systems, primed the charges. Outside the window, the red light grew closer. Enemy ships drifted along patrol lines, unaware of the danger heading their way. "Drop speed to minimum," Rena ordered. "Silent run. Power down all non-essential systems." The lights dimmed. Engines hummed softly. The Grey Widow moved like a shadow through the void. "Approaching target zone," Elias reported. "Enemy depot in range." Rena checked the screen. Rows of fuel tanks floated between armored towers, a weak point in the Vrixen supply chain. Exactly what they needed. "Send the drones," Rena said. Small black drones shot out from the ship. Each carried a cluster of Deathworld bioweapons, venomous insects and fast-growing plant spores sealed in tight cases. Minutes passed. No alarms. Then a soft beep. "Charges placed," Elias said. Rena gave a sharp nod. "Light it up." The holoscreen lit with small, flickering explosions. Fire spread from tank to tank. Thick vines burst from the ground, wrapping around metal and choking power systems. Swarms of biting insects poured into ventilation shafts. Enemy ships scrambled too late. Chaos spread fast. "Get us out of here," Rena ordered. The Grey Widow turned and vanished into the black, leaving nothing but fire and confusion behind. Rena smiled. One down. Elias looked at the map. Many more to go. The Grey Widow sailed through the dark spaces between enemy patrol zones. Alarms still echoed behind them in Vrixen territory. Firestorms burned where the depot once stood, and enemy ships scrambled in every direction, chasing ghosts. Inside the ship, no one cheered. No one relaxed. They knew better. Captain Rena Calder checked the map glowing above the control panel. Several red dots marked enemy warships sweeping the area. They were fast, but not smart. The Deathworlders had seen predators like them before. Loud, angry, and overconfident. "How close are they?" Rena asked. 3 clicks, Elias Voss answered, his steady voice cutting through the quiet. "They're spreading out, searching blind." Rena gave a sharp nod. "Good. Time to bleed them dry." The plan was working. Cause damage. Spread fear. Make the enemy overreact. Deathworld hunting lessons work the same way. Scatter a pack. Pick them off one by one. Murrin, the insectoid volunteer, spoke through the comm. "Their ships are stronger. How do you plan to fight them head-on?" Rena's grin was cold. "We don't." Elias tapped the screen. "We strike the weak ones. The supply haulers, the scout frigates, the lone patrol ships. Take away their tools and food. Cut their lines." "Small hits," Rena added. "Death by 1,000 cuts." She turned to the team. "Gear up. 2 more raids tonight." The strike crew moved fast, checking gear, loading strange weapons built for Deathworld survival. Biomines that latched onto hulls, shadow drones that jammed scanners, and venom clouds that slipped through ship vents. They knew the Vrixen wouldn't expect Deathworld tactics. Most of the Council species fought fair, with rules and careful battles. Earth didn't. Hours passed as the Grey Widow hit one target after another. Fuel barges vanished in quiet blasts. Scout ships vanished into deep space, lured into minefields. Vines grew through airlocks and blinded engines. No alarms were sent. No one escaped to warn the fleet. Inside the command center of the Vrixen war fleet, their warlord slammed a fist against the control panel. His ships were disappearing. No battle. No sign of attackers. His commanders brought him only guesses and fear. "Find them," he roared. "Bring me their heads." But there was nothing to find. The Grey Widow moved like a shadow, fast and silent. Elias marked another destroyed ship on his tablet. Their supply chains breaking. Rena kept her gaze on the dark space ahead. Not enough. Not yet. She pointed at a new target, a signal relay station deep in Vrixen space. It would leave half the enemy ships deaf and blind. "That's next." The crew readied for another run. No one spoke of fear. No one doubted the plan. This was what Deathworlders did. They hunted the hunters. The Grey Widow moved silently through the dark expanse of space, a predator slipping through the shadows. The crew was tense but focused, knowing what was at stake. Their recent raids had left Vrixen's supply lines in chaos, and their warlord was furious. "One more strike," Rena Calder said as she leaned over the control panel. "We take down their relay station, and their fleet goes blind." Ilias Voss stood beside her, eyes scanning the screen. "The relay is guarded. Several smaller ships are patrolling." "We'll deal with them," Rena said, her voice cold. "We need to get in and out fast. No mistakes." Murren, the insectoid volunteer, spoke up, his voice shaky. "But what if they catch us? What if they retaliate?" "They will," Rena answered. "But we'll be long gone before they can react. That's the plan." The team moved into position, every soldier preparing for the mission ahead. They had done this before, dozens of times now. They knew how to strike, how to disappear, and how to make the Vrixen pay for their arrogance. The relay station appeared on the sensors, a small outpost floating in the deep of space, surrounded by a handful of patrol ships. A low hum filled the Grey Widow as they closed in. The ships on the patrol were slow-moving, not expecting an attack. "Get in close," Rena ordered. "Take out the guards first." Elias nodded. "Ready." The Grey Widow dropped out of hyperspace, moving fast and quiet, its cloaking systems keeping them hidden. The patrol ships had no chance to react as shadow drones launched from the ship's hull, cutting through the silence. The drones attached to the patrol ship's engines, cutting them off from communication. One by one, the patrol ships went dark, their engines stuttering and failing as the drones disabled them. The crew of the Grey Widow moved like ghosts, unseen and unheard. "Relays in range," Elias reported, ready to deploy the charge. "Do it," Rena said, her voice calm but focused. She could almost feel the Vrixen's anger from here. She knew the warlord would retaliate, but that would come later. Right now, they had a job to do. The charge was set, a small but deadly device that would tear through the relay station's core, sending a wave of destruction through their communications network. The countdown began. "We have 5 minutes," Elias said, looking at the timer. "Take us out of here once the charge is set," Rena ordered. "Don't wait for the explosion." The crew moved fast, no hesitation in their movements. The charge was planted, and the Grey Widow pulled away. The Vrixen ships, still immobilized by the drones, had no chance of stopping them. The timer ticked down. Just as they reached a safe distance, the station exploded in a brilliant flash. The shockwave rocked the Grey Widow, but it held steady. "Target destroyed," Elias said with a smile. Rena turned to him, her eyes sharp. "Now we run." They were already preparing to jump into hyperspace, but as the Grey Widow pulled away, they could see it. The Vrixen warlord's fleet, gathering in the distance, ships turning in anger. The retaliation had begun, but the Deathworlders had already disappeared into the dark. The Grey Widow jumped back into hyperspace, its engines roaring to life as it vanished into the vast emptiness. The Vrixen fleet, now fully awake and in rage, was left behind, but not for long. The humans knew the retaliation would come fast. The Vrixen weren't the kind to forgive easily. "We're on the run now," Ilias Voss said, his fingers typing quickly on his datapad. "They'll be hunting us soon." "Let them," Captain Rena Calder replied, her eyes scanning the starry expanse. "We've got their attention, and we'll keep it. It's what we do best." The Grey Widow shot through the stars, moving fast but staying hidden, slipping in and out of hyperspace to throw off any pursuit. The crew knew they were in the thick of it now. They had pushed the Vrixen too far, and there was no turning back. Murren, the insectoid volunteer, spoke quietly. "Do you think they'll send a full fleet after us?" "It's likely," Rena said, "but they're going to make mistakes. They always do." That's what we're counting on. We need to make another hit, Elias said. Cut their supply chains further. We've broken their communication, but their ships are still moving. If we keep them in chaos, we can wear them down. Reyna nodded. We'll need to strike fast before they organize. The crew prepared for the next raid, moving with the precision that only Deathworlders could achieve. It wasn't just the technology they used or the weapons they carried. It was their instincts, honed from a lifetime of surviving on a hostile world. They were the apex predators in this war, and the Vrixen were about to learn why. The target was another fuel depot, this one deep within Vrixen space, surrounded by heavily armed ships. But the Grey Widow was no stranger to slipping past defenses. The mission would be difficult, but not impossible. We're coming up on the target, Elias said, his voice low but steady. Multiple patrols, but they're spread thin. Good, Reyna said, tapping her fingers on the console. We'll hit them hard and fast. Break through the outer defenses, then plant the charges. And get out before they realize what happened, Elias added. Exactly. The Grey Widow dropped out of hyperspace near the depot, its cloaking systems hiding it from view. The patrols were close, but not close enough. Shadow drones shot out from the ship's hull, attaching to enemy ships and silently disabling them one by one. The crew moved with ruthless efficiency, making sure their targets never had a chance to send out a warning. Soon, the depot was in flames. Explosions rocked the station, sending shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Mission complete, Reyna said, voice steady as ever. Let's go. But as they pulled away, the screen flashed with new alerts. A fleet of Vrixen warships was closing in fast. They had been discovered. They're faster than we thought, Elias said, his fingers flying over the controls. We need a plan now. Reyna's gaze hardened. We fight. They were outnumbered, but they weren't backing down. Deathworlders didn't run. They didn't hide. They stood their ground, and they fought until the end. The Vrixen would learn that today.